Hello, I'm Chuck Benoit. Welcome to Restoring Our American Republic. I'd like to again highlight President Trump's Rededicate 250 event. It runs from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday, May 17th. This can't simply be a perfunctory event with Americans simply looking on. It would be just great if we could make this a personal time of rededication and actually pray that our representatives in government see it as a national return to the Judeo-Christian value systems we've been founded on. They're the only values that everyone could possibly agree on. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone would, but those interested in their own self-interest may not be willing to agree that these are what's best for us all. They just can't come up with a value system that's better, or that hardly anyone would want to agree on. So let's get back to the best value system known to man, the Judeo-Christian value system. With that, good morning, Mike Levine.
Good morning, Chuck.
How are you this morning?
Wow, what a major transition for America. Honestly, truly, Chuck, let me just, without getting into this rabbit hole too deep, right? But America itself is idolatry in reality, right? I mean, everything in our lives, right? Look at my shirt, Chuck. I got a little logo right there. That's a polo, right? So we put our brand on everything, and our mission in life is to harness the attention of other human beings. Now, let me ask you a question, Chuck. Is that a stretch to call that idolatry?
Well, it just depends on how hardcore you want to be. Certainly, idolatry is setting up anything higher in your value system than God. Yeah, there's a lot of things that we can elevate. There's a lot of things I elevate in my life, but I don't elevate them higher than my perspective on God, and that's the big deal. The real issue is, where's your God focus? It just has to be higher than everything else, my opinion.
Well, let me add, so bottom line, how do you measure that, Chuck? From a business guy's standpoint, right? I mean, everything has to be measurable, right? So the question is, how much time do I spend worshiping Ralph Lauren compared to God? You know what I mean? So as long as but even so, right? That's a deep conversation that I'm sure we don't want to get into today. Okay, but so I'll just leave it like that. I'll just say to you that America, in our liberalism, because let's face it, America is a liberal state. Okay, we celebrate freedom. Freedom is liberal. You can, which is a biblical principle that God gives man free choice. So we have the choice to do the wrong thing. And the Bible demonstrates to us time after time after time how humans have, in fact, chosen to do the wrong thing, and God has tolerated it. Agree?
Yeah, and he's
So freedom of choice is the big deal there.
that's
And I
right.
would suggest that America is the king of idolatry. We are the best at getting people to worship us.
Yeah, well,
That's my position, and I stick by it. And I
well,
can go
that's
to
fine.
Hollywood, sports, politics, you name it. That is a root cause of what we are going to talk about today, Chuck, which is ethics in government, right?
There you go. Well, it's my opinion that America is the most conservative of all the liberal governments in the world.
That's an interesting one. Listen to what you just said, right?
But you know
America
what they
is the
say?
most conservative of all of the liberal governments in the world. To me, Chuck, that does not speak like boldly to conservatism, but
What
that's just me.
and what do they say? Capitalism is a terrible form of government, just better than all the other ones. It's like
Okay, that's possible too.
the
I'm with
bottom.
it. Okay, I think we might want to put a ribbon around this
Yeah, yeah.
conversation, Chuck, and kind of move on because we're going to be deep into this rabbit hole if we don't.
That's right. So just suffice it to say, each and every one of us have our place with God, and we need to make sure we feel that that is in a good place. So yeah, we're going to be
Okay,
talking
so we
about
can pin
ethics.
it. We can pin it by agreeing that God should be first. The decisions that we make, every decision we make, all day, every day, and across our entire life, should put God first. Can we agree
That's
on that?
that's right, and it doesn't matter if Ralph Lauren is situated on your T-shirt. That's not a big deal.
Well, I will tell you. I'll tell you off camera, Chuck. I'll tell you a story that is a crazy story that happened to me one time. But let's move on.
Yeah, right, right. Okay, so in one of the letters, as you note, what's written down comes to pass, and you've written a lot of things down. And we're going to have one of your publications up on the screen in a little while. And the first thing that we'll be talking about is ethics in government. I guess one of the questions we kind of threw out is, why is it so difficult to get neutrality in public policy? Do you want to kind of start us off with that, Mike?
Well, in order to do that, I mean, you have to define what are we really talking about here, right? So, I would suggest, I don't care who you talk to, even the most authoritative, and I'm going to use that from a position of position power. I say the governor, the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, whether it's the federal or state, right? They would agree that the purpose of government, it's so interesting. In the State of the Union address, Donald Trump said to the audience, how many of you guys can agree that the primary purpose of the federal government is to serve the citizens of our country? And he couldn't get a single Democrat to support that. Okay, so that goes to the idea, why is it, when I use the word neutrality, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, why is it that government doesn't adopt public policy according to the positive benefits to the most people in the state of Florida? Because just the opposite is actually occurring. In the state of Florida, in the Florida legislature, most legislation that passes and gets signed into law by the governor actually narrows concentration of power, does not expand the benefits of government to the majority, the largest number of people in the state, which I define as median household income families, Chuck. So why is that so elusive? And if you really want to look at it, Chuck, all we have to do to answer the question is refer back to what we unintentionally began this broadcast talking about. And it's because we put ourselves first, not God first, Chuck.
Well, yeah, that's true. Let me just throw up your publication here. And, if anybody wants copies of this, you can always text or email Mike Levine's information.
Just put it in the comments.
Put it in the comments.
Just put it in the comments. Please send me the document.
Sure.
That's it.
So we're starting to get a little ahead of ourselves, so let's throw this up. Strategies, ethics in government. And we looked into the Florida Ethics Handbook. It's about $20. We're going to be probably picking that up here pretty soon. But the first number one is to establish voter confidence in Florida elections. Mike, why is it so hard to believe that?
How about because it isn't true?
The short answer,
right?
I guess, right?
Yeah, it's just not true, right? I mean, all you have to do, Chuck, honestly and truly, the interesting part of this thing, I'm really, not too happy that I'm on the older quartile of the, when I was 20 years old, Chuck, I was managing people that were twice my age. I was the kid in the room and I was in charge. Now I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I'm old guy, and the young people are saying, "Hey, Levine, get out of the way."
Yeah, right.
We got this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the the reason that you don't believe that Florida is the gold standard in elections, like I'm just going to call them out: Rick Scott, Ron DeSantis, Cord Bird, probably Ben Albritton, Danny Perez, all the political power players. Well, I believe they're all, and even if they don't say it out loud, their behavior in their leadership role in the legislature, certainly Kathleen Passidomo, when she was the president of the Senate, came right out and said, we are not reforming the election law, right? Which means that she doesn't either, she's not interested in reforming the election law. So the question goes back: why is it that we can't achieve neutrality in public policy? And it's because the leadership doesn't want to. Believe me, the leadership in the state of Florida and in Washington, D.C. can do whatever it wants to do. What you're seeing occur is, in fact, the will of our legislators, Chuck. They can get done anything they want to get done. And election reform, they do not want to do. They do not want to address, they do not want to accept that mail-in ballots are a problem. And number two, they don't want to accept that the voting machines have been hacked. And there is enormous momentum in this country levied against any argument that mail-in ballots are problematic and the machines can be hacked. There is an enormous amount of resources dedicated to suppressing those truths, Chuck. So that's the reason that Floridians do not believe that the elections in Florida are the gold standard. Now, someone could argue that we're better than other states, but that's just not good enough for America First Republicans, Chuck.
There we go. Yeah, so moving on to the next topic. You started to bring it up. I'm going to see if I can get over there. Number two is conduct an economic impact study on Florida legislation paying special attention to the impact on median household income families. Mike, you've talked about median income families often. Maybe just a brief explanation, I think most people would understand. And why do you feel that this is an extremely important part of legislation?
Chuck, I believe that passing legislation that benefits median household income families is the holy grail of legislation. No legislation should be passed that doesn't directly benefit median household income families. That's how you raise the quality of life in the state of Florida. And I don't, and any economist will tell you, they will calculate the median household income, whatever that number is, and then they're going to tell you that people who earn a median household income cannot afford to live the lifestyle that we expect of the United States of America, Chuck. Which, and keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are not stats, this is basic statistics 101, defining the word median. That means half of the population in the data set. In this case, it's families in Florida, household income. When you say median household income, you're saying 50% of the households in the state of Florida live at or below, and the other 50% live at or above. So when I'm telling you that when all legislation in the state of Florida is designed to benefit median household income families, Chuck, every household in the state of Florida benefits. It gives lower household income families something to aspire to, and it raises disposable income for the upper quartiles of household income in Florida, Chuck. So literally everyone benefits when legislation is specifically designed to the best interest of median household income families. So I'm saying to you that that is the holy grail benchmark of what all legislation in the state of Florida should be designed to accomplish, Chuck.
Well, I have a question for you. Have you ever walked up to one of our legislators and said to them what you're saying here? What would they say about something like this? Did,
They would say, F you.
so are you saying that politicians dislike it when constituents bring up policy issues to them? Is that what you're saying?
It's funny that you should say that, Chuck, because I'm going to leave the person's name out of it right now, even though it's not that big of a deal. Okay. But I sat down a couple of weeks ago with a past chairman of the Republican Party of Florida, and we had lunch for about 3 hours. Okay. And he told me, because again, we served together at the Republican Party of Florida, and he told me when he was chairman, the number one thing that he took the most heat from legislators was that the legislators did not want Republican executive committees codifying resolutions. That's the thing they hated the most, and they were vehement, angry, and vindictive about it, Chuck. So what does that mean to you, Chuck?
It kind of means that we should just keep our mouths shut and get them reelected, right?
For what purpose, Chuck? Because they literally and intentionally legislate to your detriment. Now, let that sink in. That's a big word that I just used. To your detriment. They are legislating to your detriment intentionally. Chuck, those are very strong words, and I fully 100% stand behind that, and I will debate this with anybody. And you know, we're in the middle of a gubernatorial election cycle. Do you hear anyone talking about median household income families? No, you don't. It never comes up on the campaign trail from any of the gubernatorial candidates. Zero gubernatorial candidates talk about the benefit to median household income families, Chuck. They do not get it.
There you go. Now, another thing that we've talked about occasionally is Nations in Action's Good Governance Guarantee, which is your third in your strategy on ethics. Implement Nations in Action's Good Governance Guarantee, which is composed of NIA policies that implement the audit, affidavit, and transparency program. Mike, we've talked about that a little bit, but maybe we can just do a quick overview.
So at the end of the day, this goes to the idea, because we live in a government, we live in the United States of America and in the state of Florida. The dominant mindset is that we do what the government tells us to do. That's the way it works.
That's okay? Not a republic, Mike.
Well, I'm just telling you, so, you know, that's another conversation, Chuck, we can have. But we live in a political environment, and this is a direct violation of the Constitution of the state of Florida, Chuck. All political power is endowed in the people. That's what the state of Florida Constitution says. But that is totally untrue. We are out of compliance with the Florida Constitution because political power does not reside with the people. And that is unequivocally in the Article 1 of the Florida Constitution says that political power is endowed in the people. And that is not happening in the state of Florida. Okay? Point number one. So when you get into it, now the opposite, of course, is what the founding fathers of this country intended, which was that the government is a necessary evil. It is to be minimized in size and power and scope. And the government works for the people. The people are not subordinate to the government. The government is subordinate to the people. But that is totally, and all you have to do, Chuck, is go back I know that what I say to you right now, you will fully understand, but the audience may not. But this goes back to Chuck Benoit's policy of nullification. Okay, if the Constitution of the United States does not specifically empower the federal government to do it, then the federal government has no power to do it, and all power that is not specifically enumerated in the Constitution to the federal government resides with the states or to the people. That's what it is. So the point is, if we want to aspire to getting back to our foundational roots, then the government works for us. And in that situation, Chuck, all taxing authorities must be audited with forensic audits that are completely unbiased towards the institutions that they're auditing. And actually, if they're going to be biased, it should be the other way. It should be biased against, because we know that everywhere you aggregate money, there is corruption. So the first component of the Nations in Action good governance guarantee is audits. And every taxing authority in the United States of America should undergo routine forensic audits to make sure that our money is being spent properly. And you have to give the Trump administration credit for assigning Vice President J.D. Vance to the waste, fraud, and abuse effort. So that's the good news, Chuck. The next part, if you don't mind, I'm going to give you a chance to pop in here, Chuck, before I go on to affidavits and transparency. But I've covered most of it already, but let's see what you have to say.
Yeah, well, what you're doing is just kind of going over this idea, and what we're talking about are strategies that we here in Lake County and maybe Central Florida and beyond think that we need to be paying attention to. We're getting ready to, to have this election coming up, but even not just the election, but we also have committee weeks coming up at the end of the year as well. And we need to figure out how to get ready. And what we're trying to do is throw out ideas that will allow we, the people, to begin to strategize around or get around. There's enough organizations out there that we need to be working together, I guess, is the only thing I would say. Yeah, so you can finish that up, or if you want to go to the next point, we can do that.
Well, I'll just briefly say that the Nations in Action people, Maria Zack, to be the head of that, the founder, creator of Nations in Action, says that all employees of the government should be whistleblowers. And they should sign an affidavit every time they pick up their paycheck that says that they did not see anything illegal or anything unethical in their workplace since the last time they picked up their paycheck. So that's the affidavits piece of it. The government employee would sign an affidavit stating that they haven't seen anything illegal or unethical going on in their workplace. And then the third part is transparency, which means that all public records should be available to citizens. And then, of course, then you get into the public record request concept and all that. But if it was all published online and it was user-friendly and searchable, we wouldn't actually have to request public records and then let some government bureaucrat decide how much of the public record they're willing to deliver to us based on our public record request, Chuck. So that's kind of the Nations in Action good governance guarantee, in a nutshell, Chuck.
There we go. Well, moving down our list, we've got reform campaign finance laws, and I'm sure that has a lot to do with PACs, right? What are your thoughts there, Mike?
Right. So bottom line is the way campaign finance works in the United States of America and in the state of Florida is that it's a golden rule, Chuck. Are you familiar with the golden rule, Chuck?
A few of them. He who has
the guy with the gold
makes the
rules. That's the golden rule in America. Okay. In Florida, big time. Okay. So for example, you can take a look back. And it's so interesting that I literally was watching a podcast, and the podcaster pointed out, based on real-time fundraising events that are happening in this gubernatorial election cycle, right now, the same people are raising money for Byron Donalds today that raised money for Ron DeSantis, who also raised money for Rick Scott, who all were successful in their quest to become the governor, except, of course, Byron, jury's out on Byron. But the point is that the money people in Florida own the governors, Chuck. That's just the way it is, ladies and gentlemen. I hate to say it. I know it's a big pill to swallow because we all adore certain governors of the state of Florida. But the fact of the matter is that these governors are controlled by big money. Every single governor, back to back to back to back. So we take, DeSantis for 8 years. Let's just say by the end of his term this year, he'll have served 8 years. Rick Scott, 8 years. That's 16 years, Chuck. That's a long time. And then now, if Byron Donalds wins, then they own him too. So you could just add another 8 years to it, and you'll have 24 consecutive years of this little small cell of wealthy people who own the governor's mansion in the state of Florida, Chuck. And that's just the way it is. So that's the golden rule, Chuck.
There we go. Well, let's go ahead and finish up. We've got just a few minutes left, and our fifth and final point under ethics in government: require all principals that lobby the legislative and executive branches of Florida's government to publish their legislative priorities.
Yeah, isn't that interesting, right? So people talk a lot, Chuck, about the closed doors, back room meetings and smoke-filled rooms and all that, right? Well, the reality of the situation is there is no backdoor smoke-filled room. It's actually your legislator's office. The special interest or the lobbyist that represents the special interest makes an appointment. The legislator knows that these people have the ability to donate money to their campaigns and support their political career. So they take the appointment, and then the legislative aide greets them joyfully as they walk into the office area. And then you walk into the legislator's office and you close the door. And that's where the deal goes down. Okay? So the point is that these special interests, they do register who their lobbyists are, and they do register themselves as the principal, as we have pointed out on this broadcast on multiple occasions, but they don't actually publish their ask. So, for example, any solid lobbyists, including grassroots lobbyists, if you want to be effective, you need a leave behind. You need to document, as I say many times, what's written down comes to pass. So you don't walk into your legislator's office and have a conversation with that legislator and leave it to the legislator to filter through what you talked about to determine what they're going to act on and what they're not. No, you write it down for them. You tell them exactly what you would want the legislation to say. As a matter of fact, you probably provide the legislation for them and say, we want you to sponsor this bill. That's the most effective way to get things done in government. Bring the legislation you want implemented. So don't you think that special interests should be required to publish their legislative initiatives, Chuck? What do you think?
Well, it certainly makes sense if they're not concerned about the public.
Well, no, not to mention the fact you can also see which special interests are actually opposed to each other. If we put a little competition, right, between the environmentalists and the developers, right?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
I'm a realtor, Chuck. I'm pro-development, but I'm against polluting our waterways. High-density development results in polluted waterways because we take no legislative position that requires developers to protect our waterways from the pollution that their pavement creates. So by forcing special interests to publish their legislative priorities, we would at least let special interests know who their enemies are. And you could include the grassroots in that. But to be honest, the grassroots are irrelevant. So why don't we just let the special interests know which other special interests support their point of view and which other special interests are in opposition to their objectives? I think that would really kind of help greatly level the playing field legislatively, Chuck, because all the people with money and power would know who their friends are and who their enemies are. Okay, so that's that. And of course, the political committees and campaign finance reform is still, we haven't fully laid that out. So we may have to come back to it in another broadcast. But I believe personally that what we're lobbying our legislators, what we're lobbying our legislators for, we should have to publish publicly, Chuck. And I'd be happy. I do publish my stuff. So there you go.
Okay, so with that, we're going to say thank you, Mike Levine, and thank you all again for tuning into our twice weekly live stream. Please follow us on Facebook and X at Restore Our Rep 76, or check us out on YouTube at Restoring Our American Republic -ROAR. Please like and share the program. And remember, if you're unwilling to govern yourself, you will be governed by tyrants. Until next time, God bless you. God bless President Donald J. Trump. And God bless America.